Hi all, Ellie Kate here. Hope you're all well. Yesterday was World Book Day, so I hope you all had a great day yesterday, reading books, doing whatever, making costumes and things like that. Luckily I didn't have to do too much because my daughter's school were doing words and you just had to pick a word really, so she went as Sparkle, so dress and whatever, so that was alright. Today I'm going to read you a part of a story that I've written. It's not quite finished yet, and hence why it's on my tablet. I do all my writing on my tablet, and I like to read it out to you, see what you think, and see where it goes. It's not quite, as I said, it's not finished, and the title is a working title, so that might change. So who knows? So it's called at the moment The Impossible Murder. There hasn't been a murder in over 500 years, and all crime had been virtually eradicated for more than a century after the Great Plague that swept through the world, forcing whoever was left into dome-like cities. Though life was tough in the beginning, our society grew strong, but we built the new age of man. As we built the new age of man, sorry. Eventually, our great country became a beacon of I can never say this word. Stability and safety. And though crime was as dead as the Great Plague had become, the government decided to keep a few detectives in place to keep society safe. All in all, my job as a detective is somewhat outdated, and for the most part, my day-to-day life was somewhat structured. I would spend my time what the what the ancients would call as a clerical role, filing paperwork, making phone calls, and the odd occasional patrol. And on the odd occasion, patrolling the beat, which in hindsight suited me just fine, as I have never been the one to rock the boat, whatever a boat is. This was before everything came crashing down, turning our way of life on its head. I still remember that day as if it was yesterday. Chills shiver down my very spine to this day, thinking about it. I barely noticed my junior Detective Peters come rushing into my office that day, like a bat out of hell. As I was taking a short break from my desk, eating my usual ham salad sandwich. Out of breath, he leant over my desk, his hands spread shakily across the soft steel top, speaking in a tone so raw that I could barely understand what he was saying. Peters, get yourself together again, I hum, getting up from my seat. You are talking gibberish, as a plague victim would do. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Take a seat and tell me what is so important that you barge into my office without course and procedure. I look at my junior with watchful eyes, folding my arms over my chest, leaning close to him. It's Peter garbled a breath. Take your time, Peters. Deep breaths. Come on. In and out. Repeat after me. My junior followed my lead as I too took deep breaths, and after several minutes, Peters became himself again. So tell me, what is all your blundering? It is of some urgency, sir. Come on, Peters, spit it out. Yes, sir. There's been a... He coughs into his fist. Come on, Peters. I don't have all day, I mouthed, taking a large bite of my sandwich. There's been a murder, sir. He spat the words out so fast, making me choke on my sandwich. What? A murder? I felt fear spread through me like I never felt before. Am I hearing you right? Yes, sir. You must be joking. I wish I were, sir. Sergeant Venables has called in. He wants us to get down to the main square as soon as possible. My mind was a whirl of uncertainty, grabbing my coat, heading out of the door, and down to the square. Murder in this great age. The thought crossed my mind. Murder. It's unthinkable. On reaching the square, my fears became reality. A crowd had gathered to see the unbelievable sight, and no police train has ever prepared me as I pushed through the density of people to where Sergeant Venables was waiting. Ah, there you are, Mackintosh. Peters. Venables nodded towards myself and my junior. This is a savage thing indeed. My sergeant shook his head. I do not have to tell you, Mackintosh, that this is a grave situation. I gave a stern look at Peters before he sniggered at Venables' core choice of words. Never in the new age of man has such a thing as this has happened. He stepped aside to reveal a man lying face down, his head submerged into the fountain waters. And looking closer, it was hard to tell if it was a man or a woman, as the head was brutally caved into unrecognizable, but the muscle tone and structure of the body, it could most likely determine that the body was of male persuasion. He was stripped clean of any clothing. Yes, it is grave indeed, sir. I turned my head away from the sight of blood pooling around the lifeless body. Not to go against your judgment, sir, but are you sure that it's murder? Am I sure it is murder? What do you take me for, Mackintosh? Venables put his hands on his hips, grunting at me as if he did when I stepped out of line when I was a junior. Of course it was murder. Does it look like natural causes to you? He points his finger towards the body as I followed, trying to forcefully not to throw up at the horrific sight. It could have been an accident of sorts, my junior pointed out to the city hall. He could have fallen off the building, hitting his head on the way down. Stark naked, Peters. I highly doubt it. Highly doubt that. And anyway, it has already been established by the medics that the victim's head was not due to a fall of any height. But murder, sir. There hasn't been a murder in 500 years after the Great Plague. I understand your concerns. I too was dubious, Mackintosh, when I first came to the scene, but it is murder. My stomach clenched at the thought that someone was willing to take another life. Gulping down the disgust, I asked, "What is our next step? I'm unsure of the procedure of such a case." Your next step is in identifying our victim. He has no identifying marks and no identification. So it's best that you head down to personal regiment with this. Venables pours out a small glass vial of blood, handing it over to me. And before you ask, there is no use in thinking of using the retina chip. It has been completely destroyed and the data corrupted. Once you have discovered his name, you better get a start on who would want to kill him. Interview everyone that has any connection to him. Right, sir. I take the vial from the sergeant, pocketing it into my coat. Peters, let's go. Yes, sir. Peters hurries back to my side, with annoyance in his voice that he was called away from the body. Before you go, Mackintosh. Yes, sir. I do not have to tell you how important a case like this is. We must find the culprit as soon as possible. Are you ready? We are already going to have a field day with this. Venables surveyed the crowd. The president wants this dealt with quickly. If it gets out any further that there has been a murder, we might find ourselves with more than one body on our hands. Yes, sir. Good. I will instruct that the body is moved to the medical unit. The medics may be able to find out more. Venable puts out his hands to shake mine. And good luck to the both of you. I take his hand in return. Thank you, sir. Come along, Peters. I turn, heading up the steps to the city hall. Sir, I'm not sure if I understand. Peters comes up behind me. Why would Sergeant Venables have the body moved to the medical unit? Would it not be more sensible to take him to the incinerator in the usual manner? That would be the case, Peters, if this was a usual case. I could feel the junior scratch his head as the cogs in his head start to turn. I get that, but how are the medics going to use the body to find any more clues? I stop at the top of the steps, turning to face the chestnut-haired Peters, his hazel eyes staring at me in confusion. I think Sergeant Venables is referring to the ancient method of a post-mortem. A post-what? What is that when it comes to home? A post-mortem, Peters, is, I could barely believe what I was actually explaining such a thing to the young detective, is where the body is cut into and examined. My junior's mouth dropped as I explained what the procedure was. You mean they actually cut into the dead body, taking bits out to determine death? I nodded. Why did they not just scan the body? And why are we not using it now? Because, my dear Peters, I placed my hand on his shoulder, smiling at my junior's naivety. There was no such thing as body scans before the Great Plague swept through our world, and we cannot use it because our victim's retina chip has been corrupted. That is why. I take the small vial out of my pocket. We need this. A blood sample. What would that do to help? Again, my dear Peters. The blood sample will help us to identify who was killed, and that is why we are heading into City Hall to get the sample analysed by those in the personal regiment. Oh, I see. I get it now, sir. I'm glad you do. I open the door to the City Hall, allowing my junior through first. How I wish I still had your naivety. Peter scowled, making me smile once more. Come on, lad. Let's not dwell on things. I guide him towards the front desk, which sat a stern-looking woman. Her hair pulled up into a tight bun, scraping her face upwards. Her uniform not too dissimilar to my own and Peter's, as most clerical workers wear. A hard grey jumpsuit with a thin pale blue cording framing the lining to break up the grey. May I be of assistance to you? Her voice was cold and collective, singing into my ears. Yes, Detective McIntosh and Junior Detective Peters. We are here on vital business and need to access the personal regiment. The clerical looked up at me, taking the retina scanner from under the desk. Very well, Detective McIntosh, if you wouldn't mind scanning your chip, she says with suspicion in her voice. And you, Junior Detective Peters. She holds up the scanner to her right eye, allowing the chip behind our eyes to coordinate with the scanner. I have done these millions of times throughout my life, but still it makes my eyes water. Once we've proved who we were, the somewhat beautiful clerical worker, now warming to me, changed her suspicion out to a more friendly persona, taking us through the double doors behind the desk and up 3 flights of stairs to another set of double doors. After giving me a warm smile with as much meaning behind it, she left us, but I could not help myself watch her go, her smooth curves swaying as she walked. Has it been that long since I've last been with a woman? Ignoring the thought, I turned back to Peters, facing somewhat awkwardly at him as he's smirking back at me. Are you ready? I shaked off the anxiety, taking hold of the cold steel, the door handle, pulling it open, allowing him to squeeze through. Yes, sir. I follow him in from behind and stand yet again at another metal desk, and yet again another clerical worker. Having our retina chips scanned again, when will this bureaucracy ever end? We were shown through the large door, with many computers screens mounted on the wall. A small man sat in front of the screens, his back facing us. What do you want? The man spoke, not giving any notice that we were behind him, his voice sounding like a cross between a frog and a hornblower. I'm Detective McIntosh, and this is Junior Detective. I know who you are. What do you want to know? Is what I want to know is what you want. The small man turns on his chair, facing us, looking at us with beady eyes. How in the dome do you know who we are? Peters spoke before I could reply to the small man. I'm the keeper of records. I know a lot, Junior Detective Peters, and that we have been retina scanned twice in the space of 20 minutes or so. More like 15, but you are quite correct, Detective McIntosh. You are quite correct. The small man jumped off his chair, stretching up to his full height. That was to my middle or so. Sorry, I was going. Shaking both our hands, he gave us a broad smile, revealing a toothless but one tooth mouth. I am keeper of records, small man. So, what do I owe this pleasure from 2 fine clerical detectives? We are looking into finding the identity of a murdered man. A murdered man? Detective, what do you mean, murdered man? There has not been a murder in 500 years, we know, but there is always a first. I take the vial from my pocket, keeping it closed around my fist. Well, I never. Yes, and it happened right outside in the square. I could see Peter bring the next murder victim at the hand of saying such a thing. I really need to have a word with my junior about keeping his mouth shut. By the dome, Smallman walked to one of the many windows looking down to the square below. The crowd had already gone, and so was the body. All that remained was the pool of blood staining the cobbles of the path, which, when looking, made me queasy. We are not 100% sure that he was killed there, but that is where he was found. I gave Peter another hard stare, pushing the sickness through this spilt blood. Well, I can tell you one thing, Detective. He wasn't there when I arrived at work this morning. When was this? I tapped the corner of my eye so my retina chip would start to record. Why do you want to know that? Smallman smiled, his one tooth poking out of his mouth. You can't think I, a high-ranking clerical worker like myself, would do such a thing. Of course not, but it would help to give us a timeline of when the victim was murdered, or when his body was left in the square in front of City Hall. Well then, Detective McIntosh, I arrived here around 6:30 this morning. Why so early? I am the keeper of records, Detective Peters. My work can be quite demanding. Smallman walked back to his chair. You said, Detective McIntosh, you need to help to identify your murder victim. Why do you need my help with that? Swirling around to face us, would it not be easy to scan their retina? It would, Mr. Smallman, but his retina chip has been destroyed. That will never do. He thrusted a long arm towards me. I'm guessing that you want me to process the vial of blood in your grip. That is the plan, Mr. Smallsman, my detective. Then, Detective McIntosh, please hand it over. He beckoned his hand towards me. Handing the vial over to Smallman. Smallman grabbed the vial, breaking the glass and allowing the blood to smear over a glass slide. Buzzers beeped and the slide went into the machine, calculating who the victim could be. Moments later, a profile filled each of and every screen covering the wall. Well, your man is no other than Sergeant Venables. That can't be. Before Peters could finish his sentence, I smacked his hand over his mouth. Is everything all right, Detective McIntosh? Is Junior Detective Peters all right? Yes, everything is fine, Mr. Smallman. Thank you so much for your help. Before anything else could be said, I dragged Peters and myself out through the double doors. Tapping the corner of my right eye, I let go of my junior, collapsing against the wall. What in the dame was all that about, sir? Peters' eyes looked at me with wild and wary eyes. Placing a finger over my mouth, I hushed him into silence. There you go. That is the short story I've written. It's not finished, as I said, but is the murder victim Sergeant Venables or not? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. I hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you very soon. This is Ellie Kate. Bye bye.